Picture perfect, I paint a perfect picture, but that picture ain't truly perfect cause of the place we live in. Too many Glocks, too many nines, too many tools, too many pimps, too many whores, too many fools. Addicted to they cool, never make it through school, claiming they trying to get paper, go out and making them news. He got blood on his shoes, he's got blood on his face. Rather sickening to my stomach, leaving such a bad taste. Today, no, not today. Put the Glocks away.
Me and Njeri Handz Camphor here. A few amazing brothers that I respect, man. I seen y'all around the city. And speaking of the city, go around, man. Let's introduce yourselves and what part of the city you in, if you want to claim it. If you are doing your taxes on the other side, you know, I ain't got to tell nobody. When I've been in Memphis since 2016, and Memphis ain't no punk. I'm trying to tell you, some people recruited us to come and be part of the gumbo that is Memphis, to make Memphis a better place. I found myself right in the heat, in the thick of South. I was living in East Memphis, but I came through in South Memphis is where I spent most of my time. Could you help us with where is South Memphis?
South Memphis specifically, which is near to my heart.
Okay.
Borders, I mean, you could say right on the backside of Orange Mound. Now, you don't call Orange Mound South Memphis. Orange Mound is considered Orange Mound.
It's a sovereign city state.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Right. And Jeff alluded to earlier, man, just a rich history of Orange Mound. I think they've earned that right to be called Orange Mound. But I'm from the Glenview area, which is right on the backside of that. But South Memphis extends from there, like you say, Castalia area, clean on the riverside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Orange Mound is the second oldest African American community in the United States. You're talking about maybe 25 to 27 years removed from the Underground Railroad. The first black person to ever own their own home and land was in Orange Mound.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't know that their roots started here, you know what I mean, and migrated other places. But Orange Mound is the first intentionally built African American community next to Harlem. And Harlem was the concrete jungle, you know what I mean? But like I said, 95% of the businesses on Park Avenue were black owned and operated. And, you know, drug culture and things kind of tore that up. When the drugs come in, the crime go up and so on and so forth.
Wow.
Hasn't been the same since, really.
Wow. Literally didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Been here for a while. And I actually like to kind of think of myself as a black history enthusiast and all that, but does that change how things are ran today? Like when you see, you know, the community in Orange Mound, when you see it's even the black community as a whole in Memphis, like, do you feel like they see Orange Mound as that historical landmark as you just described?
Hey, you know, you always gonna have a few quote unquote woke, you know, African American people that understand it, that get it. But you know, if you talk to some of the old people that, you know, that have squatters' rights, the old folks that's been there from ground up, you know what I mean? They know what it is. That's why they ain't left. You know what I mean? But the young boys nowadays, they trample it, treat it like trash. They don't know. They're further and further removed from the intentional the design and the purpose of what that was supposed to be for us as African American people.
Yeah, man, I'm from Flint, Michigan.
Right.
Yeah, the place with the bad water and crime and all that. And man, I chased the hoop dream a lot and ended up in Jackson, Tennessee. And when I got married, I moved to Memphis. So I've been in Memphis since 2007. And despite what people outside of Memphis may say about Memphis, man, I love Memphis, man. I think Memphis is a wonderful community. I love the term you used earlier, gumbo, because that's exactly what Memphis is, man. Like, man, you can find some of everything in Memphis, especially when it comes to food. All kind of different foods in Memphis because of different people that's in Memphis. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, the city is predominantly African American. And then, you know, in those communities, man, it's predominantly impoverished. But Memphis has a lot to offer, man, and I know for me personally, being here as long as I have, again, coming from Flint, it's like, man, I wish I could take some of the momentum and some of the things that are happening here in Memphis, man, and go and duplicate it back home in Flint. You know what I'm saying?
Memphis making moves like that, you think?
To me, yeah. And it may be that the bar is so low or whatever, but at the end of the day, again, my family is here. We've made a family here, made a home here.
Yeah.
I love Memphis. So Memphis is
Memphis
good.
native, speak on that.
Oh man, I love Memphis.
Memphis making moves though.
Memphis is making moves, man. The city been progressing. A lot of people say we're behind. You know, look at other places like Nashville, Atlanta. your home. See you with the
Got two chocolate.
But you know, but the M is home, man. I think that we are definitely progressive. I think that, you know, a lot of times we get the bad spotlight when it comes to crime, but there's so many other great things in our city. Rich heritage.
Let me say this, right? So anyway, I'm sitting in a meeting with a lady, and she was integral in helping Nashville kind of grow into what Nashville has become. And one of the things she said, man, you know, one of the problems y'all have in Memphis is that there's this, there's like this badge of pride that comes with all the negative that happens and the hardships in Memphis, right? She said, man, stuff happened in Nashville. We just don't talk about it like y'all do. You know, she was like, we have things, and the FBI come asking for stats and stuff like that. We just don't give it to them. So we can't be on some list about being the most dangerous city in America and all that kind of stuff, because we're not staking claim to that. So I think for me, you know, when it comes to Memphis and Flint and all that kind of stuff, man, we got to start changing our conversation, because if we change our conversation, just like you said, Memphis is slow and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong, I think Memphis is moving at the pace Memphis needs to move in. Right? Because if it moves too fast, there's a lot of people who won't be able to continue to keep up with it, right? When you think about Nashville and the way Nashville has moved within the last decade, a lot of people had to leave Nashville because they can't afford it. But we still want Memphis to be affordable for Memphians, and if it moves too fast, without, you know, some other pieces moving at the same pace, like it's going to pace people out.
But when you talk about just even the lifestyle of Memphis, the interactions between different people in Memphis, thing we talk about that sometimes could drive people out. I mean, cost of living is one thing, but the reason I don't want to live there anymore, crime. Like you said, everybody has to deal with crime. Every city in America's got to figure it out, right? But is Memphis known as a city of crime? Is that what's driving people out? Is that the badge even young people want to stake their claim to? Because I was saying earlier, Orange Mound, North, Memphis, like in the hip hop community, Memphis is known as that spot for some action if you want it. And is that driving people out, or because you're saying the older people should know about the great rich history of Memphis, right? Is that what's keeping them there? That's what's keeping them here?
I think one of the things is you got to remember Memphis is one of the poorest cities in America, and it has been for a long time. Just in 2018, it was the second poorest city in America, and that was before the pandemic. So imagine where we are now. So a lot of what you see with the hip hop artists glorifying drug culture and sex and even glorifying, you know, human trafficking, so on and so forth. But we glorify that stuff, right? But those guys feel like their back is against the wall, and I don't have a way out, so I'm gonna fight my way out. And that's why they glorify those things, because you're dealing with kids that are sleeping on pallets on the floor, dealing with kids that are missing meals, dealing with kids that have been homeless, in generational poverty and things like that. Who can determine if my means justifies the end? You know what I mean? So that's why they glorify this stuff, because they see a way out. How many people go to school and get an education for something that they never get a job in? So that doesn't look appealing to a lot of the kids when you start talking about the benefit of education, especially when your educators, your teachers, are struggling and about to pull their hair out and barely making money too.
Well, I got somebody, Pollard, Brother Pollard. I mean, speak on your path, because you said you're Memphian, right?
That's right.
Native.
That's right.
You're probably one of those people that saw education as what? Because you took a different route. That's what you were just telling me.
We got a thing here that's called "Every Child Shall Pass," man, and that is very true, because once you go to school, man, you go to school every day of the year and still don't learn anything, man. You know, you get pushed through, you know, all the way up to 12th grade, man. And I was a victim of that, you know. And once I got out of high school, you know, it's like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? Okay, let me be a barber, man. You know, the smallest things that I can do, you know, because I hadn't got that education yet. And so after I became a barber, you know, I didn't come to the barbershop yet, man. I moved out of state and started doing all the bad things that I learned from Memphis, Tennessee. You know, my hometown.
Took the show on the road.
Yeah, took the show on the road, man. And once I got to Iowa, you know, I did all the bad things there, man. And once I decided to come back home, hey, 3 days here, you know, I was in the system, man. You know, I moved from that point on, man. So I had to reconstruct my life. 3 years total. And that's something we have to do, man. We have to reconstruct our lives, man. We don't do no reading. We don't do anything, man. We just want to live because of poverty.
Hey, can I chime in on that, on some of the good things going on in Memphis? One of the things with the education system is that there are programs that are leaning more towards the tradesmen and teaching kids how to work with their hands. You know what I mean? You have the artisan, you have, you know, the creatives, and then you have the analytical, critical thinking people. And I think sometimes the education system is weighing too heavily on the analytical, critical thinkers. And even with reading, like most countries don't even have textbooks. Their students don't even have textbooks. It's a lot of hands-on learning. If you go to these other countries, they learn hands-on and experientially. So you know, I think there are other career readiness programs and things getting kids into crafts and getting their hands busy, teaching them cosmetology. A lot of girls want to start their own shops, teaching guys how to cut hair, like my man Pollard here. You know what I mean, and so on and so forth. But just the name real quick, I ain't gonna take too long. Tom Shadyac left the beaches in Malibu to come to South Memphis and build a studio in South Memphis. He has his rock climbing facility with Memphis Rocks. Shout out to Memphis Rocks. Yeah. He's come intentionally to be a part of the solution and not just talking about the problem.
It tickles me to see that man just in Kroger in front of me. Like, what's that?
It's one of the most down-to-earth people you ever meet, man. Shout out to Tom, you know what I mean? And then you got David Porter. David Porter has 350 million records sold. That's more than Beyonce and Chris Brown put together. And this man started an artist development program. Shout out to the consortium MMT, and he's doing it for free. If you get this from, let's just say Andre, who doesn't have 350, sorry, 3 Stacks, y'all got 10 million double diamond, you know what I mean? I love Drake, but you gonna get charged the arm and a leg in Atlanta for an artist development program like that. You're not getting that for free. And then Penny turns around and chooses University of Memphis. We got the #1 recruited class right now. He brings in Larry Brown and some other heavy hitters. There's some great things going on in Memphis to try to rebuild the city. Kim Wilson with Holiday Inn, they just moved their corporate offices right downtown. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that people don't talk about other than the crime and the poverty and the negative stuff.
And that's the thing, man. Like, I know for me, even, you know, being an educator, I taught for 10 years elementary. I grew up a little bit like you, Mr. Pollard, man, where, you know, I was just a fool in school, man. Since like 2nd grade, school wasn't cool, so I didn't do school well, right? Like, just being born and living in the neighborhood I lived in, I automatically was engrafted into our gang in the community. Like, there was no question in that. Like, I live inside of town, I wear blue still to this day, even though like it's a subconscious kind of thing, because that's the side of town that I grew up on, and that's where I repped and all that, and a lot of times that's where my protection was, you know, in that as well. So it was either making that choice or going the hoop route, you know. So went the hoop route. You know, later on I looked at, you know, trying to do the gang and the drug thing, and my brother wasn't having it because he was already living that life. He was like, man, you gonna hoop. That's what you gonna do. Yeah. You know, so it was a different pathway. But like you just said, you just mentioned all these great things, man. Too often our kids are not exposed to that. You know, and I fuss at our school system sometimes because we don't. We want to focus more on the books and the test and all these different things. And like, we got to a point to where, you know, schools couldn't take no more than 1 or 2 field trips a year. That's limiting our kids' opportunity and exposure. Not everybody is going to be a freaking scientist or whatever. Like, you know, there's so many different opportunities out there, but we don't expose kids to them. You know, they don't see respect in looking at a barber or looking at, you know, a guy who runs his own trucking company, you know. Like, that's a new hot thing now for a lot of cats who want to, you know, kind of not maybe going to get the bag that other way. They're like, man, let me go drive a truck. Because I hear cats out here making $200 grand a year driving a truck.
Okay. Yeah. Now, how do you feel about your, you know, how you grew up? Young man, young black man, coming out of South Memphis. I mean, you got shot yet? You got charges? You got some like shoes on.
Well, thank you, man. But for me, I did. No, I have not been shot. Thank God, I have not been shot. Been shot at 1,000,000 times, but never been hit. I guess they couldn't shoot. But growing up in South Memphis, man, I lived. I think my mom and my other 6 siblings, we lived everywhere you can imagine in South Memphis. You mentioned Cat Stadium. We lived in Cat Stadium. We lived in Riverside. We lived in Glenview. We lived in anywhere South Memphis you can think of. Weeks Alley, Mississippi, wherever. and we moved a lot, and a lot of that was due to poverty. We didn't have much. My grandmother thought, well, my mother thought it would be better for me to move, being the youngest of 7, to move with my grandparents in Glenview. So that's how I ended up in Glenview, born in Riverside. And again, it was still the same narrative. It was poverty, crime, drugs, violence, but they were homeowners.
Okay.
You know, so it gave me a bit more stability. So I was a little church kid who couldn't leave the porch.
Oh.
You know, but off the porch, it was going down.
Okay.
Around me. So I don't know how deep you want me to dig in that.
It's all good.
Yeah, but
I don't want you to get indicted by.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. I eventually, man, by the age of 12, I jumped off that porch and got involved with everything that I saw. You know, and I think Brandis mentioned earlier about exposure, man. Like when you're not exposed to entrepreneurs, you know, healthy entrepreneurs.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, make sure. Yeah, because a lot of cats in the streets are entrepreneurs. They have an entrepreneur spirit, right? There's not no direction with it. So, man, I saw that, became consumed with my environment. Eventually, as I mentioned about the degrees, you know, man, 7th grade education, man. I dropped out 7th grade, picked that sack up, got affiliated by 16, and just, man, ran reckless like that for a lot of years, man. So, just with that, I've always loved my city, though. I've always had mad love for Memphis. I don't blame Memphis for me making the poor decisions I made, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I think it had nothing to do with Memphis per se. I think it was a bigger picture, man. They're looking at poverty, you know, you're looking at, and I can't blame Memphis for the poverty of Memphis, right? It's a bigger issue. It's deeper roots. I think that it had a lot to do with fatherlessness. You know, not necessarily having my father directly in my life. They played a huge role in me searching for heroes, searching for someone to emulate. Yeah.
Can I stop right there?
Sure.
Because you, and I only know this just because I know this brother Brandis personally. We started talking about that parental influence.
Yeah.
Your father was kind of in your life, interesting situation. You come from a similar background as far as the demographic, poverty, and say Michigan you mentioned. How similar is your story to his, and kind of where does it differ and where does it vary in regards to your father's influence? Because where he at now is crazy.
Yeah. So, man, a lot of similarities when we were younger, me and Eric. But again, I came to that crossroads where I chose ball over street. My dad actually, you know, did his best he could. My dad actually was in prison for majority of my young and teenage years, but he still tried to stay connected. I had a stepdad. I mean, they never married, but might as well. And then, you know, like, again, exposure to different things, man. My AAU coaches, you know, and I've had a chance to go back about a year ago and just have a conversation with him and thank him. And our same 8 to 12 guys played ball with each other year round almost up until, you know, we graduated high school. A lot of us made different choices since then or whatever. But again, that exposure, like playing on that ball team, the AAU travel team, and I know the AAU is completely different than it is now. Like that was my window to exposure of something different than just what's on my street and in my community. So it wasn't until I was in the 9th grade that I took a trip to Michigan State University that I was in a space and a place was like, man, I like this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's trees and manicured grass and people are just happy, right? So that kind of sparked a little spark of desiring something different than what I was seeing every day in my neighborhood.
Your dad was in prison.
Yeah.
My dad went to prison. I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
He murdered my mom's boyfriend. And I was born south of Memphis in Vicksburg, Mississippi. My family actually fled to Memphis to get away from my dad. Stalker is the understatement of the year. My dad was on some other stuff, man. A lot of court cases, right? A lot of court cases we went through. And we're going back to the idea of exposure, like what can help students growing up in an adverse community. But prior to that even happening, I remember being 4 or 5 years old in West Side Atlanta, Cascade Road at John A. White Park, being taught golf. And man, we had to be there for 8 hours a day. Because my mom's a single mom of 5 kids, and y'all ain't finna be at your grandma's house, you know, inside my grandma's house for 8 hours a day. She said, y'all finna go across the street, learn some daggone golf. And you there 8 hours, so we got good. And all my siblings got real good at it. And so golf is the way we started traveling a lot. And so my brother, he even got a full ride scholarship to Alabama State. So that's an HBCU. I remember you mentioned about had you played sports, and sometimes school was just in the way. It was something that I had to do. And I think a lot of young people might try to like think about, man, what's the easiest thing for me to do? What's the path of least resistance so I can quote unquote be successful? And I think that's when we can see a lot of people turn to crime.
It's so funny, man, because like, you remember how we used to always get asked back in the day, what you want to be when you grow up, right? Man, I've kind of, at some point I asked that question, but a lot of times when I got an opportunity to spend some time with some young guys and gals, man, like, I'll ask them, what do you want out of life? Like, that'd be kind of my initial question. What do you want out of life? And what do y'all think the answer is most times?
Oh, famous, to be rich and famous.
Rich, famous.
They do a lot of stuff for clout nowadays. Even with this Young Dolph killing, man, I feel like a lot of the dudes that did it, they just wanted some clout. You know what I mean? They want the respect on the street and clout to run up their social media pages and make some money. But a lot of the moves are made based off of being rich and famous.
That's it. Rich, famous in that bag. That's it. Rich, famous in that bag. So then the next question is, well, how, you know, once you decide what it is, what you want out of life, how do you plan on getting it? A lot of times the room goes silent because they ain't got no answers for that. And thinking about exposure, and as a parent, man, and as a former educator, as working with kids, man, I tell people this as a caution. Man, what really hurts my heart sometimes is to see these little kids with cell phones, man, with no kind of restrictions on them. Because that right there is just a window to everything. So when we talk about like being raised by grandparents and whatnot, and they try to keep you on that porch, like it's the same concept but a little bit different. Now it's like when you get that cell phone to a 4, 5, 6-year-old,
You off the porch.
You off the porch.
Yeah.
You way off the porch.
Right.
And you can go anywhere, anything, and all that, you know. And you know, so that's a caution, man, that I give. My kids I got an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and I got a little baby now, but like they ask for cell phones, a lot of their friends may have cell phones. You're not getting a cell phone.
Yeah,
because I don't feel like you're ready for that exposure.
It's only gonna get worse too. It ain't going backwards.
Ain't going backwards.
Gen Z, man, you know they got this NFT stuff.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have these goggles. Just like I could get on my phone right now and be zoned out, tuned out in another world online. There are more and more people that are gonna have these goggles where they can put the goggles on and you live in a virtual world. You can buy virtual clothes. You can have a virtual car, a virtual house. They're gonna be living in a whole nother world. Almost like, you know, if you really want to understand it, I would say watch the movie Ready Player One.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll kind of help you understand where things are actually going.
Metaverse
Facebook,
and all that.
Yeah, Facebook Meta and all of this. But that's an actual thing, you know. People buying land and buying property and stuff in the digital world.
And you know, friends of mine will convince themselves, oh, my kids need a phone because, you know, they're involved in different things and they may need to contact us and all that or whatever.
Call collect. Hey, mama, remember
yeah,
that?
you better borrow somebody's phone because you just not for that.
Yeah, me and my family, we honest, man.
Flip phone.
One of them cellular, one of the ones you see on the with the senior citizens. You ain't got no phone program numbers in there.
Right.
Yeah, but that's important, man, to think about. We think about exposure on 2 different forms. You know, you got that exposure to something good, but then also the dangers of being exposed to stuff way too early.
Right. How do you think people, whether they're in affluent circles or even in lower income, lower middle income communities, how are they navigating all of what's happening? Let's say particularly in Memphis, like you hear about the shootings, you hear about, you know, sex crimes happening, you hear about, again, teens going crazy on social media. And it's not just porn addiction, it's literally just screen addiction. How are we doing it? How are families doing it?
I guess I'll speak first to that. I'll say that someone who is on the outside of poverty looking in, it's a bit easier to judge someone's choices without knowing their options. You know.
So good. So I mean, finish your point, but say it again.
Well, I think it is. It's a bit easier to judge their choices without knowing their options.
Wow.
So, you know, me working in youth outreach for like 20 years now and have experienced so much, always working in the hood. Like, that's where I want to work, in the hood. And seeing young people, man, don't know where the next meal gonna come from, don't know where dad is, sometimes don't know where mom is. They have to stay on the van hey, Mr. E, can you drop me off last? You know what I'm saying? And even it may be totally inconvenience because I got to drop the kid off in Whitehaven, and I got to get home. I got a family, you know. But I understand this kid saying to me, "Can you drop me off last?" It's more to that. Okay. You know, maybe I don't want anybody to see how I'm living. Maybe I don't have nowhere to go, and I don't want to ask in front of everybody. Maybe it's something I want to chop it up with you about. So I think that, you know,
until you know their options, you can't judge.
You can't judge, man. You got to get to know them and see what's really going on. So I think just, and from the other perspective of poverty or in neighborhoods that's crime-ridden, like, you know, we have to assume some responsibility as well, you know, for our own actions. You know, I think you can't just always talk about how other people view it. How do we view it? Like, you know, why are we normalizing this? Why have we become desensitized to this crime and this violence? And I'm a guy who contributed to that, like, you know, to that lifestyle. And so, but when, you know, my eyes open, you know, and had my experience with God, I'm like, man, you know, I want to be the change. I want to do something different, you know, but I don't want to go in judgmentally and looking at people saying, man, why you doing this? You need to.
I'm there every day.
I need to get to know you.
On 10, I choose violence.
Right.
Because those are the questions I ask.
Yeah, right.
Because I grew up in those same neighborhoods, but at the same time, here I am as a grown man. I moved my family to Memphis, knowing it's a hotbed for crime, knowing that this city needs improvement. But you know, I can feel how I feel. Yeah. But I'm still deciding to be part of the solution, right? But I do want to learn what are people's options. So we're here at Pollard's Barbershop, and it's easy to see somebody's quote unquote success story. But I just asked them, I'm like, what were some of your options growing up? How did you get to owning this barbershop?
I was just like these guys too. I'm from South Memphis too as well, and I'm from Westwood, and I was on the porch. You know, I see my father do well. You know, went to work every day, along with his brothers and everything, and I just seen, you know, what not to do and what to do. You know, and I just want to touch on what y'all was just talking about, man. Like out here, right here in Cordova, this is supposed to be suburban land. You got the kids out here that stays in $300,000 houses, man. They want to be gang members. They are gang members, and they are spoon-fed from day one until 18, 19 years old. They out here shooting people. They doing all the backward stuff instead of the people in poverty, you know, and that's part of the problem too, you know. And but me, you know, I just played basketball, man. Did everything I had to do to stay in school, to get out of school, you know, so I can move, you know, in my life, you know, where I'm at today. And everything else, I just stayed the course, basically. And once I stayed the course, that's how I ended up right here, right now.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to chime in. Me being the least athletic guy in the room.
Better say something.
You know, only beauty of it is I'm a lefty, man. So I had a little jumper that'll trick you, but that's it, right? It's over with. Hood on the tree with the crate. Like, that's how we play ball and fighting. You get more fighting than playing basketball. There you go. But the sports, like it did, man, trying to get involved with sports taught me a lot about teamwork and all that. But I want to piggyback on something you guys said earlier about these options and about how kids who live out here in areas like Cordova and $300,000 houses, but they want to be gangsters, or many of them are gangsters. You know, at one point when, you know, growing up in South Memphis, like back in the day, South Memphis, North Memphis was a real gangsters. You know what I'm saying? Like you had, you know, Westwood as well and amount other areas, but you know, you saw guys from Whitehaven or East Memphis, like, oh, they got money. You know, we didn't view them as gangsters. They got money. They trying to be tough. But now it's a reality, man. These young cats have, you know, really got a taste of that life, man, and jumped out there. And back to that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. There's a B part to that. It said, but if the child does not feel a part of that village, they'll burn it down to feel its warmth. And I'm thinking about that with the kids in these $300,000 houses. Are they feeling the warmth of the village? Or no, are we spending so much time trying to make a living that we're getting to live and invest in our kids who are right in our houses. And so you're seeing the results of, to me, we're reaping a harvest now of seeds that were sown years ago.
Yeah.
It's generational stuff. Yeah. When the crack situation came on the scene, everybody fascinated with selling dope, getting all this crazy time that people were getting for rocks. Man, their kids were still out here. What you call the crack babies? Yeah. Were still out here. Now you got babies of the crack babies.
Leadership is gone, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly, man. And we're right now we're reaping a harvest of seeds that were sown. So
that's why I like to think of, how can we as adults kind of mend those bonds that have been broken historically, if it's been happening. You know what I'm saying? Even as now business owners, like, hey, you probably wouldn't have gotten a loan 20 years ago, or you would have caught a charge that would have hit you with this much time. Like, is there anything we can still do today, or are we still only going to be dictated by the current and flow of wherever history is going, whatever social trend is going? Can we put a stick in the water? Can we build a dam and say, no more? We finna chart a new course. Can that happen?
It starts with an individual, and that individual making that individual choice, with everything. I think, one of the things that we've gotten away from, I think, is always looking to blame somebody else for stuff, right? And we don't want to really step up and say, whoa, what did I do in this situation? Like, I came to that realization, man, a couple of years ago when it came to the schooling stuff, right? So, because you got me, who didn't do well in school and made a bunch of poor choices, but then I have a first cousin who did the exact opposite. Basically came out of the same situation. She just made different choices, So we don't put enough emphasis on helping people understand, like, your choices and the choices you make definitely impact everything around you. And today, man, we just live in a time, I don't know if we've ever not lived in this time, where everything is just in the now, man. Everything is in the now. We don't really spend a lot of time trying to look back at history and the things that, like Orange Mound and the history of Orange Mound and how to take pride in that and how that's been passed along. People just have to start making individual choices, man. But in that, when I say people, man, I'm talking about, it gets so deep. Because we're talking about choices even made on Capitol Hill and in the White House, and how those choices made by those individuals impact the opportunities a lot of kids can have here in Memphis and other urban cities.
They do affect me.
Oh, it affects all of us, right? But it comes down to some of these individual
I'm a bit radical,
choices.
so I'm radical militant, so you have to sell me on that.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I understand completely.
But individual people making decisions, you get on Black Wall Street, is it Greenwood, is that what it is? And then you get Orange Mound. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if enough people make the same decision, back the same cause, go the same route.
It's so crazy, man. I was actually sitting in a meeting with some pretty influential folk here in the city when the Young Dolph killing happened, and was just sitting around the table talking about it with some other folks. And it's so crazy, again, this particular individual and the choices this person can make and how it can impact tens and hundreds of thousands of kids. I had no clue who Young Dolph was. Doesn't really have much clue about, gang violence in the city, It's almost, to him, it's almost like Blade, in the movie Blade, you got the vampires and all that kind of stuff. Underworld, man, it's all underworld. It's not his experience, So the way that he operates and does life doesn't really impact much of that. Though he has the kind of power and influence to impact it on a lot of, and actually does in a lot of ways.
Earlier, Eric, you said one of the problems were people being scared. They were being afraid to be in proximity, in relationship, to this younger generation. You look at Gen Z and some of the music, some of the artists, some of the people, the things that they know, their culture, you just detached. And I think you can't be afraid of proximity, because when I sit in these different meetings, a lot of times on boards and in different meetings, we having conversations about what's going on with the next generation, but nobody's there representative of their generation.
Right.
And the same way that when some organizations have conversation about race and inclusion, they don't have other people from minority culture being represented in those circles. So you have to stay connected in some way, shape, form, and fashion to even be able to hear their hearts and to hear what they're dealing with, to know how to answer. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Sure. And you got to keep some type of point of contact, or else that's not going to happen.
And kind of echo you on that, Jeff. Like the very thing that someone on the outside looking in would view as poison, you can find an antidote right there in it, in the venom. You know what I'm saying? It's right there in it. And you just have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone or your safe haven and go and talk to them. And just, you know, another saying, man, I heard, just rules without relationship leads to rebellion. So you can't come with a bunch of rules to people that you have not earned the right to be heard with.
I.e., when you vote legislation for this to happen, that to happen.
Come on, Doc.
And you don't even know these folks that you set these laws.
They're gonna rebel, you know, and that even goes all the way down to us being in youth outreach, youth ministry, churches, or whatever. Like, you know, you need to earn that right to be heard, build that trust. You know,
I call it relational capital.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
know what I mean?
That's it.
So
That's it.
You can bank on that when you got it. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But
that's on you.
well, we didn't really talk about gang culture and the gangs as much. I think Brandis brought it up. You know, the funny thing for me is that gangs, if you look at the history of a lot of these gangs, which most of them started out in California, out of the Watts riots and stuff, and the intent was to protect the community from the Klan or from, you know, corrupt police and so on and so forth. But if you look at, you know, Bloods, brotherly love over our destruction, and Crips, community revolution in progress. How did we get so far from brotherly love over our destruction? You know, when you strike the shepherd, the flock will scatter. America's always been afraid of these terroristic groups. That's one of the reasons people believe that the government killed Dr. King. You got, you know, same thing with the Black Panther Party with Fred Hampton. Strike the shepherd, flock will scatter. They get further and further away from the intent that it was created on. And some guys do it off of territory. I call it, in social psychology, I call it, this is my own personal thing, but the sibling effect, where if your oldest sibling is picking on the younger sibling, who is that person gonna pick on? He probably gonna pick on you. If you the youngest, you know what I mean? It kind of goes down. So the white man got his foot in my neck, you know what I mean? And this oppression thing, then they go and try to exercise their power over the ones that they can, which is the other brothers that look like you in your community. I may not be them, but I'm not you. My car looks better than yours. My shoes look better than yours. My girl looks better than yours. And you start bickering and fighting over territory that don't belong to you. My hood better than yours, and this, that, and another. And they start warring with each other. And after you kill so many off, the next generation is coming and saying, I can't be something else because my uncle died over this. My cousin died over this. So I'm born into this, and I have to pick a side. So, but they lose the intent of what it was built for, and then some guys now in this generation are just doing it, like I said earlier, for clout. It look cool. The girls think I'm cool, and there's other reasons. There's a lot of different reasons, but those are some of the main ones. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to also it was never taught, right? At some point, where did you lose the connection in the relationship to be able to teach what was the purpose of this? Right? Things should be passed down, not just dropped down without the responsibility of making sure that it stays what it was designed to be. So even when I think about our communities, man, like, you know, our grandparents are so disconnected from their grandchildren, or they're just too young and really haven't been raised to understand, you know, where we've come as a people from and how to continue to move within pride. And because I always told people, man, just because you're poor and broke and ain't got money, that doesn't always have to lend itself to you being violent and all that. Like, there's a lot of opportunity out here, man, but you have to take it. You have to make a choice to do something different.
I think teaching the history is dope, but I'm like, hey, we ain't always got to go to the history. We can even start right now. We can remind people of the values that we today live by. I don't know what the rest of Memphis is doing, but I want to be part of something dope. So, you know, Orange Mound ain't got to just be Orange Mound, but the love and the legacy of Orange Mound can be widespread. But what if they have to get behind y'all to be, you know, y'all the drum major, y'all the line leader, what is it y'all are doing to make an impact, how people can get behind y'all?
Well, I currently serve as Executive Director of Streets and Ministries. Streets has been in existence now for, over 3 decades. We started off in the South City, South Memphis area, near Foot Home, Claiborne Home,
That area is going through some major changes right now. And also we launched in the Graham Heights, Berkeley community years later. But sir, man, we do youth outreach. We do, to sum it all up, what we like to call more: mentoring, outreach, recreation, education. So we open our doors every day, Monday through Friday, for middle and high school students. We have about 200, 250 kids coming through our doors a week, every day rather. And man, we use those tools to just fulfill our mission, man, to ignite that flame of hope in every child every day. And we think that's done through relationship. So some of the opportunities that we have for people to volunteer is to come in and be a mentor. Hey, particularly black men, man. I'm big on our kids, because predominantly, kids we serve are predominantly African American. So it's good for them to see some strong black men coming in as well. But this mentor would commit to 1 hour a week with the kid. And that's huge for a kid who does not have a hero, or a kid who, even in some two-parent homes, when they're working hard to take care of their kids, it's good to have somebody to come alongside with you to help you support you with your kid. But we have those opportunities. We focus on literacy, so it's real big on having people come in and open our learning labs just to help the kid with their homework, help them navigate through some of that issues. We also offer Bible studies. We're a spiritual organization, so we think that true change can only come through the gospel. So that's a big piece for us. In sports, I think we all hit on that. So important, you know. I tell coaches all the time, hey man, whether you like it or not, you are a mentor. You are a father.
So it's not about winning?
Right, it's not about winning.
It's not about Frank.
I'm glad you just said that. I told our coaches this. We got a young team, and Brandis had the opportunity to see some of our 9th and 10th graders. They coming, man. They get there. And I told them boys something. I said, hey man, I told my coach, I would rather these young men go 0-10.
Don't say that in a press conference.
And have character, and opening doors for ladies, being respectful, you know, than going 10-0 and just totally embarrass their families, embarrass us. You know, no, I want to build young men. I don't want to build a team. So I think that we could use all of those, just all of those programs, everything that we have to bring to the communities to help build these young people up. So that's what we're doing right now.
What you doing?
Yeah, man. So I currently work for Memphis Athletic Ministries, man. Very similar to a lot of what Streets do. We work hand in hand with each other in a lot of ways. We've been around since '98, man. Working hard to grow, coach, and lead kids to find their identity in Christ and restore hope. And we do a lot of things like Streets do, primarily through sports, but we have literacy programs, we have mentoring programs. We do a lot of sports leagues that kind of try to draw different Memphis communities together relationally. So we do those things. We have a particular program called Amplify. Again, it was a 1-year cohort program where kids can come and learn about entrepreneurship and all kinds of stuff, financial literacy, all those things, kind of just trying to fill in the gaps a lot of times that they're not getting at school and some other places. But also it comes with a mentoring component where they mentor, I want to say multiple times, meet multiple times a month or whatnot. So a lot of that is going on. And I'll just mention that our two organizations and other organizations like ours are honestly birthed and supported by somebody who has the influence, who has the resources, and has made the personal choice to say, I'm going to do this. And between the two organizations, man, for the decades that has been around, I've seen a lot of kids and families changed and opportunities given and grown and all that, and we'll continue to do that. But on top of that, man, like I like to do this, man. I'll say Thomas Tucker, Marty Embry, Jan and Jim Hafner. Again, these are names of people that nobody in this room knows.
Say some good names. I don't know who they are.
These are people who made a choice to invest into my life when I was a kid.
Wow.
And to give me opportunities. So whether I'm working for MAM or if I'm a teacher or working wherever, like because of the influence of those individuals, like that's what I want to do. And sometimes it gets kind of hard because I got my own 3 kids at home and a wife and all that kind of stuff, man. But I just want to encourage people, man, to like, you know, be brave, Be patient. It takes a lot of patience to work with people. Like, we know that even working with adults.
Take more patience than kids.
Yeah, man. You know, be committed. You know, and try to just, man, reach one. What's the old saying? Reach one, teach one, change one, whatever it is. Like, be committed to that, man. That's really what it comes down to. You know, everybody has something to be able to pass along, help along somebody or whatever. I know both of our organizations and ministries are really getting heavy into being being trauma informed and how to respond to trauma, how to identify trauma, how to help people identify the different traumas that they're dealing with. Like, all of us are sitting here and talking about different things that if we took one of them little ACE tests, that joke would be ringing off the thing, you know. But it's like, now how do we respond, you know, to that beyond identifying it, man? So again, those are some personal things that I got going on. So again, you can check out MAM. You can come be a volunteer, you can coach and mentor. Or just come hang out and build relationships with kids, man. You know, give, whatever, to help, you know, make a difference in our city.
What you got going on?
Just like the rest of y'all, man, I know y'all brothers personally. I know people watching this, probably this is their first time getting to know us, but I've dedicated my life to this cause, so we can run down so many different things that we've been doing and just fill up the time with that.
For real.
I would say, to narrow it down and put it in a funnel, you know, we've been through so much. There's a lot of unprocessed trauma that where people need healing, they need counseling, and a lot of people can't afford it. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm working with my wife. My wife has a private practice called Bluff City Health. You can follow her at whitneytrotter.com. She is working, trying to get people of color access to this type of counseling and processing at an affordable cost for eating disorders or anything that you're struggling with. We don't really talk about black males having eating disorders and how they will binge eat and smoke marijuana, chain smoke, blunt after blunt, just to self-medicate. You know, so I'm working with my wife and supporting her in that as she's getting her doctorate as a psychiatric nurse practitioner. On my end, I have a brand called Bend Don't Break. And it's my effort of meeting the culture where they are, but trying to encourage them and push them towards faith in God and spirituality. Not just in any God. For me, I believe in Jesus. But I tell people all the time, it's not the size of the load that you carry that's going to crush you. It's how you carry it. So bend your knees and pray. Don't break down and lose hope. You better bend before you break. You can't carry all of that. You weren't made to carry all of that. If you were, you would be God. We can't do it. Like he asked earlier, well, hey, how we gonna draw this wedge and put the line in the sand and change out? We can't do it. Now we can shed a little bit of light and give a little bit of hope in our time and in our generation while we still have breath. But we ain't got all the answers. We just some people that have dedicated our lives to try to make a difference and care about the individuals. You may not be able to do, for thousands of people, but do for that one the same that you would want to do for those thousands of people. You know what I mean? So bendontbreak.com, and I spell don't with an X. You can email me at bendontbreak, DXNT is how you spell don't. bendontbreak@gmail.com if you got any questions, want to follow what we're doing. But I have a clothing brand where we put out apparel that has a positive message, a message that's going to get you to think, a message that's going to encourage people, and we try to generate revenue through those things, pop-up shops and the online store and things like that, to where we can do a mental health summit where I can go to schools and speak to kids in the after school program and so on and so forth. So those are two of the things, my wife's private practice and what I'm doing through Bend Don't Break. And the third thing is I work at one of the largest Presbyterian churches in America. And I have the privilege of being an assistant to the senior pastor, where we're working on a business apprenticeship program called Prolifics. Shout out to Nipsey Hussle. Called Prolifics, man. And prolific is just a term for being highly fruitful and highly productive. A prolific songwriter can pump out 5 songs in a day, you know what I mean? And we want to learn from the OGs, some of these CEOs and executives of some of these big companies like FedEx and International Paper and AutoZone. And come alongside of them and learn not just as far as business professionalism, but to learn how they incorporate their faith in their life and in their workplace and things as well. So you get mentorship on the professional tip and spiritual mentoring as well. So that's prolific. We'll kick that off in January, man. But like I said, you got any questions, man, email me. Feel free to holler, man. My IG is at Bend Don't Break as well.
But what I'm trying to bring back bare knuckle boxing and mud wrestling, so folks can figure out their issues and stop doing this over Twitter and then all that. To me, that what's wrong with it? Yeah, bare knuckle boxing, let's get it. But I tell you what I like to do. I like to bring the life to the party, man. I am an MC. I dare not call myself a rapper because I make more money making MCing rather than I do actually spin bars. Don't nobody want to hear all this, this righteous community conscious stuff. So anyway, but what I would like to do more of is technology. I want to get more students involved in IT because they're already spending exorbitant amounts of time, excessive amounts of time with technology in hands, interacting with it. But first I gotta get out of debt because I've been dedicating past 15, 20 years of my life of working on the ground, boots on the ground, building relationships and relational capital. How we do this and how can we do this together? Brother Paula, thank you for letting us be in your shop, man. This is dope. And so I'm gonna support, you know what I'm saying, what he got going on, but letting him finish trimming me up. I appreciate it.
Hey, Njeri, I'm gonna say, man, I know you joking about, rhyming and everything, but bruh, that allows you to put on digital skin and to exist and be relevant into this whole cyber world that the kids live in. So don't take that for granted, man. You know what I mean? I rap, Ball right here, he rap, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just, even if it's just for fun, bro, and it always warrants the kids' attention. You can gather a crowd, y'all have fun, but you get to talk to them in their language, you know what I mean? And they just understand it better. If I write a sermon and I got a 30-minute sermon, they're not gonna listen to that. But if you can put that into some bars, into a 3-minute song, bro, they gonna play it over and over again. So, you know what I mean? Don't take that gift for granted, bro, you know what I mean? So keep going, even if it's just for fun, but a way of connectivity to that group that we talking about, reaching in that next generation.
Say no more. It's young folks. I just need a low fade.
Chop it all off.
Oh!
Chop it all off. Sitting back in the office looking like a new man.
Can I just fade away? No tears in my eyes, no crying today. No, not today. No, not today. No, not today. Put the guts away. I'm praying for the killing to just fade away. No tears in my eyes, no crying today. No, not today. No, not today. Put the Glocks away.